welcome to episode 13 of Wealth Talk. My name's Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director for WealthBuilders, and joined by Mr. Kevin Whelan, founder of WealthBuilders. Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Chris.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well today. Looking forward to revealing a little more.
Indeed, it's part 2.
Yeah.
So last week, we covered the first 6 modules of the brand new WealthBuilders Foundation program, which is launching today.
Wow.
It's out. It's available.
I'm scared now. What are people going to think? I don't know. Well, I hope it should work for them. It's worked for us.
It seems a natural step to really pull it all together into a program that people know that they have a blueprint where they can actually follow that.
Yeah.
It's a scientific process. If you follow the steps and you turn the wheel successfully, you will start to build your wealth.
Yeah, it works because it works. It's a foolproof system. Only fools try and cheat it, and rarely they do. That's the DIYers. But anyway, let's get into the detail, Chris.
Yeah.
Well, you want to do a quick recap, maybe?
I'll quickly recap for anyone who is listening now who perhaps didn't catch last week's episode. And I definitely would say go back after this and have a look, have a listen to that. So section 1, we've broken the program into 4 sections. And the first section is really about your self-wealth. It's the mindset. So that covers off the wealth dynamics and where you are on the 5 levels, because the foundation program is squarely aimed at people who are not yet at a place of financial security, so not yet generating enough asset income to cover the base level of monthly expenditure.
Yeah, and I think a note for the future, which is, many of our listeners and many of the people we work with have already passed that level, and I don't want to have them feel that they're going to be cheated of information. There's certainly lots of exciting things to come at much higher levels, but given this is the vast majority of people, Chris, and we know if 95% of people don't make it, that's a big number. So we want to really do our best to help those people first. So I'll make no apology for that.
And in section 2 of the program, there's really a lot of information crammed here, and this is understanding where the hidden money is in your life right now. And we have a process for that we've talked about before. And then the protection of your wealth, which is the roof element. And then module 6 is creating leverage. And that will really help you then identify which is the right pillar.
Well, that's the first 6 sections are really getting ready. It's packing your bags. It's getting everything ready for the trip. And when you get to that next point, you've got to start taking action now. So everything's ready. You're loaded. Now it's time to move.
That's it. We've got a strong foundation and the roof is in place.
Yeah.
So it's time to look closely now, which is section 3, which is the 7 pillars of wealth. And module 7 is an overview of the 7 ways to build wealth. So the 7 pillars.
Yeah. And we've done the 7 pillars before and we've covered that. And in a previous podcast, we not just talked about a reasonable introduction to each of the 7 ways. And there's still only 7 ways, Chris. So I still don't have the speak pipe message from anybody saying, I found pillar number 8, Kevin, right? So we're still on number 7 and we still only have 7.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing as we think about building those is we've highlighted the risks, or not the risks necessarily, we'll talk about that probably in a minute, but we highlighted the mistakes that people make. And in the module, we'll start to introduce people to some of the case studies of people as well who are starting to do something. So once you've got that real clear understanding about which pillar, what they are, then you begin to find yourself ready to choose which one's right for you, at least to start.
Yeah. And we know without doubt from previous experience that there can be some massive aha moments when people really understand the assets and what's currently in their life already.
Well, sure. I mean, that financial leverage piece, there's always, or almost always, some financial asset that can work harder. We know that. But also, Chris, let's not forget that sometimes, the journey of discovering the pillars and the assets is also one that helps you if you don't like something, because you identify something doesn't fit your dynamic. It's not the right thing for you, but you haven't invested heavily in lots of education and lots of time delay. So by understanding them and talking them through, you get to a much faster decision about what's right for you.
And module 8 is actually choosing your pillar. And that's really taking everything that you've learned in the first 7 modules and then very clearly and calculated decision as to which asset class will you focus on.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that, though, Chris, is we need to go a little deeper there because we can't just say business, we can't just say property, we can't just say IP, and we can't just say joint ventures. We've got to really try and unravel the layers so that individuals can choose which facet, which type of, let's call it, the pillars represent a strategy. And then each different way you can deal inside that pillar is like a tactic. So the most popular one, Chris, by far, we know is property. But there are at least a dozen different strategies on property. And we need to try and at least give, our listeners an overview of those so they begin to choose which ones are most likely for them. And we can narrow that down. And it's always best done with some guidance because to try and learn a dozen strategies would take a year. And then that just delays things. Then you discover it's wrong for you. You've just wasted another year. Yeah. And we don't really want people to waste more than a month.
Yeah. Well, that's maybe a good point at which to mention that throughout the foundation program, there is a choice of 3 different levels in terms of, do you want the education only, which is kind of the do-it-yourself?
Yeah.
We don't really encourage that.
No. Look, in truth, Chris, the reason to create it is because it needed to be created anyway. It's like a foundation program that you could have on a university course, sort of open university course. People can buy the education, but it can't buy insights. It can't buy accountability. So in truth, the education is there, but wealth is built far more quickly and more safely and more enjoyably by working with someone. The whole process of wealth building is best done by being connected and not by doing it on your own. But we respect the fact that some people want to do that, and there's nothing wrong with them having a go at that to then discover if they need help along the way.
Yeah. So the 3 options for the foundation program: education at level 1, support at level 2.
Yeah.
And this comes with bi-monthly support calls from a wealth coach.
Right.
So you're checking in, you've got that accountability.
Yeah.
And then level 3 is connection, which is monthly calls with a wealth coach, and also live masterminds throughout the year as well, which of course we will be in attendance, right?
Well, that's right. I mean, I love the mastermind because it brings the power of different minds, and the mastermind principle has been well established as a way to accelerate people for years and years and years, ever since Napoleon Hill's great book, Think and Grow Rich, seminal book, which I would recommend to everyone. But so the idea of getting people together, whether it's online and offline, and probably both, is just fascinating and interesting as you see the insights and you actually see the light bulbs, which is great. However, we recognize that not everybody has the time for that, not everybody has the budget for that. Recognizing, of course, that we've said all along, or I've said all along, anybody who's investing in the program at any of the connection or support levels, so level 2 or level 3, has got the double money back guarantee. Education of its own, well, we can't be held accountable for that. So that's just a money back guarantee. If you don't like the education after you've had it for 30 days, send it back. It's all free. Or you get your money back anyway. So we would definitely encourage people to spend a little bit more time to think about, working in support, getting some guidance and possibly connections. But you'll cover that more, and we'll send details out when we anyway.
And the important thing is that you're in control of the range of support that you need. And
exactly,
as you progress, you can upgrade. And if you feel you need more support, more connection, that's not a problem.
Yeah, especially if people are time poor, they might be happy with a call every couple of months. Whereas if you've got yourself to a position where you've got a day a week, for example, or a half a day a week to spend on your wealth, then you multiply that by 4, that's a whole day a month. So therefore you would probably want to think about, getting into a regular monthly rhythm of adding to your wealth. Because in the end, if you do it once a month or once every 2 months, the difference in cost is almost negligible, but the difference in outcome is dramatic because you're speeding yourself not just 2 times, but the power of the fact that you transform yourself is really quite important. But anyway, everyone can choose their own level. It's fine.
So module 9 then is the Wheel of Wealth. We covered this in a previous Wealth Talk episode. and understanding the 5-step process required to complete one turn of the wheel.
Yeah. Now, I think my experience of people, when they see the Wheel of Wealth, they recognize the principle of good education is the starting point of everything. And of course, one of the benefits of being connected, being supported rather, is we can help people identify within their own assets where they can get that connection for education at a lower cost or sometimes free, which in the pure education program, we can't do that because we can't know what your assets are really. But as far as the wheel is concerned, people can understand the education. Yeah, they understand the need for some support or accountability, even if it's with a spouse or somebody, that's close to them or a business partner. They get the idea of it's better to be connected than not connected, usually. What they often miss out, and it's really important, the other two parts of the wheel, Chris, they're no less important, albeit they're less spoken about. The fourth part of the component of the wheel, the fourth spoke, if you like, is the spoke of due diligence. And the due diligence piece basically is there to protect people from risk. And what we normally find is those people who want to push on often have wealth dynamics which are more creative, more driven, and the due diligence is almost, they miss that stage out. So it's really important to not do that and to be part of a genuine process that says, look, let's check you've done this to make sure that before you take the action, before you commit your time and money to whatever action you're engaging in, you've done so with the lowest possible risk to you. And then the guided action sounds a bit weird, right? Because action, what's the difference between guided action and action? Well, the point about guided action is not just to do the right thing, but to recognize that when you turn a wheel and you complete it, so you've gone 360 through education, support, connection, due diligence, and guided action, like a cog, it's connected to the next cog that you'll engage to build your wealth further. Now, that could mean there's an issue to deal with on tax. That could mean there's an issue to deal with on what you've just learned. Or it might be, in terms of understanding a new tactic within the same pillar or even a brand new pillar. So understanding how all these things click, click, click and connect, it's really important in guided action. Whereas if all you do is invest in the education, you won't know those things. It's too difficult to put that in a book.
Yeah. And part of the foundation program will include a private group as well. So all foundation members will be able to share and learn from one another 24/7.
Yeah.
Great. So we've said you can't cheat the wheel, right?
Can't cheat the wheel.
But so many people fail at building wealth because they simply don't follow those 5 steps, right?
Well, unless somebody tells you what the 5 steps are, how do you know what steps to follow? So, I see what most people do is we got a visual for the Wheel of Wealth in many places, right? So
yeah, and that's free for everybody in the free membership area access. So,
right.
Yeah.
But what I see a lot of people do is go from a little bit of education, and instead of going 360, they go back to action. They sort of go back 4 spaces, like on a whatever it is, there's
the snakes and ladders.
Oh, whatever it is, right? There's a game, I think it's Sorry or something. Right. It says go back 4 spaces, and you go back 4 spaces, and you're kind of accelerating. You're doing a shortcut, but you can't shortcut the process, because if you make a mistake, you made a mistake that can cost you forever. So, and that can be very, very damaging. And the wealth world is littered with stories of people who thought they were buying into something, thought they were doing something well, and actually all that happened, they were either cheated of their money or they didn't know enough and made a huge expensive mistake all on their own. And I can tell you some stories on that, Chris, and maybe we'll cover some of those stories to help people really get the point. But yeah, you've got to follow the wheel in the process it was designed. And if you follow that, don't cheat the wheel, it will work.
In addition to the support calls from the wealth coach at the support level and the connection level, we're also going to be doing some live monthly Q&A webinars. So any questions, you'll be able to jump on and ask you directly.
Ask Kev, I love that, because it sort of, it connects us truly to what people really need and what problems and challenges they're seeing out there. And while we're not trying to sit in an ivory tower perched above everything and looking down, that's absolutely not the point. We're trying to work with people trying to see what their challenges and problems really are. And sometimes, Chris, these calls dispense a little bit of tough love, which is you're just not taking the action that you said you would take, so that can be important. So people need to be open-minded to that. It's not a place for know-it-alls. It's not a place for arrogant people. They wouldn't fulfill our values. It's very much a place of open-mindedness. The result is what counts. It's not feeling that you're a master of the craft of wealth building, because you will not be on the first turn of the wheel. Wealth building in itself is transformational. You change as a person, your wealth changes. So you get better and better and better and better and better at this. And it just so happens we've turned hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of wheels. So we kind of know how it works.
Well, supporting the growth of the community, which is one of the values.
One
in
of the
the
values,
declaration.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And
so I want the success stories, Chris. I want people to say, I did this and it worked, and this is what's meant to me, and share that good news. Remember, 50,000 people is what we're trying to achieve here in terms of impact on people. And 50,000 people means, a lot of people need to show us evidence that they've achieved it. Not just, oh, we really like the education. We want evidence that their wealth is being built. And that's what it's, and that's the only way this is going to work. We've got proof.
Yeah. And we'd love to see you sign your declaration and upload that into the Wealth Builders Facebook group. We've already had many uploaded in there, but we always love to see new ones.
Well, that's maybe in the foundation program, we should make sure that's the
I think so.
first action they take, because if you don't subscribe to the values, then what's the point?
That's right. Wow. So section 3, there's a lot packed in there, and that's really, really important. And so once the pillar's been chosen, once the understanding of the wheel of wealth is there, then we move into section 4, which is generating asset, income, and capital.
Right.
And all the education in the world won't make any difference unless you actually take some action.
Right.
So module 10 is setting the wheel in motion. So this is where you really understand the individual aspects that you've just explained.
Yeah.
And of course, then you've got that support, should you choose that, from your wealth coach to actually say, okay, I'm doing it, but, don't quite understand, or this has happened. And that's where it's great to jump on a call, isn't it, and get that experience advice. Yeah,
exactly. Because each time you turn the wheel, you could have an interruption into something. Something unexpected could happen, either to you or to what you're learning. So, that's that being live and present in the actual wheel turn, not just the theory of don't cheat the wheel, but physically doing it is really quite important.
Okay. And then module 11, asset, income, and capital, which is really, I guess, the point at which you review. So you've now gone through the process.
Yep.
And if done successfully, income is now being generated from your first pillar.
Yep.
But there will have been so many lessons learned along the way. So it's time to really take stock of that and say, okay, how can we improve this now for the next term?
Yeah, which is part of the point I made about guided action. You don't quite know what you're going to do next until you take a period of reflection and say, well, how did that work for me? And remember that some people will be looking for turns of the wheel for cash flow. And we definitely want that, because cash flow is essentially the recurring income, or the asset income that will help people move up towards their level of financial security. But also there will be people who want capital, where the purpose of the turn of the wheel is to give them an injection of capital, which then means they've got maybe a year's worth of salary, so they can give up the job and commit themselves fully to wealth. So everybody will be different, right? So it's not always just about the cash flow. It could be either or.
And then module 12 is your wealth level milestone. So we talked about getting from a place of insecurity to security. Now, it might take more than one turn in order to achieve that.
It might take more than one wheel.
Correct.
Yeah. So remember, the wheel is a tactic. Now, you could, as some people may do, is turn the same wheel, essentially, or the same tactic multiple times.
An example being?
Well, a simple example might be, I've got absolutely no time at all, so I need to delegate everything. I'm going to buy 3 buy-to-let properties in the next 12 months. The hardest turn of the wheel is going to be the first one. The second one will be a repeat, almost, not exactly the same, because you still have to do the due diligence on this particular project, but it's similar. But it's easier. You put some grease into the wheel now. You've got some energy. And then the third one will be easier. And once anybody's done 3 of anything, pretty much they should be in a position of to master that. But that's what I mean by that. But invariably, to get the highest and best return, you also need to be looking at the same time as to, well, what will give you a bigger return? So instead of doing that particular strategy or that particular tactic, what would be another tactic that might give you a better outcome? So in some cases, Chris, people will be turning one wheel that they're actually engaged in, but turning another to learn about what they'll do next. So there's no limit to how many wheels people can turn other than their own capacity. And what we don't want to do is people get overwhelmed, of course, but one or two wheels at the same time at the beginning, probably okay, depending on time leverage. We'll know that. If in doubt, one at a time. If you've got more capacity, you can generate maybe two at a time. Some people can handle more than that, but that's a bit like, my son can juggle 4 balls, I can't, so he's got that capacity. I don't know how to do that, so there you go.
So there's 12 modules, and as we've said earlier on, it doesn't necessarily mean one module per month.
It doesn't, but what it does mean, though, is we want people to commit to the idea and almost to really believe that there's a principle which they should not deviate from, which is never let 1 month go by without doing something significant. And I mean significant, not just read a book. That will change your wealth. So therefore, the worst case scenario is take each module and do it in a month. Most people can do this far quicker than that, Chris, and people will underestimate what they can do because at the beginning they always feel like they're poor for time. So 1 a month, perfectly fine. Sometimes you can do more, and I'm sure, Chris, there'll be some people who will go from the initial start through to generating cash flow or capital within 90 days. They'll go 3-4 times faster. I'm certain of that because people are doing that now without the formal program that we have, just doing it with me.
So if you're enjoying what we've been discussing and you think that the timing's right, that really this fits your needs right now and you're committed to achieving complete financial independence, because really that's the ultimate goal, right? That's the market point.
This is not a drifty game. I'm not interested in working with drifters. We'll help the DIYs a little just to overcome their initial feeling. But we want, actually, ideally, Chris, what we want is maybe a burst of really committed people to launch the foundation program formally as we expand our reach, and maybe give an incentive and maybe select people who and ask them to confirm they're committed to being wealthy. They're not just interested. They're not just lukewarm on the subject. It's a commitment, and they're willing to demonstrate that. And if they're willing to do that, I think what I'd rather do, Chris, is rather than just have people test the education, I think what I'd rather do is give them all the support that we know they're going to need at the same price as they buy the education. But only for a limited period of time, right? Only for the committed people, because it would do my head in. If we get drifters who, getting a little bit of curiosity, but that's it. I think if we could get maybe 100 committed people, I'd be really happy to do that.
Okay.
But time limited, please, Chris.
Well, the episode is out on the 1st of May, which is today, if you're listening on the release. And I think for the next 7 days, shall we say that as a special launch offer, we set there's 3 levels, 3 options here for the foundation program. Level 1 is education.
Education only.
And that's priced at £500.
£500, yeah. Plus the VAT, don't forget, is a VAT registered business.
And level 2 is where you get the extra support. So that's the bi-monthly call from the Wealth Coach and also access to the Q&A webinars.
Right.
And then level 3 is connection.
Yeah, you didn't say what the level 2 cost was.
Level 2 cost is £1,000.
Yes.
So for a launch special for the next 7 days?
Yeah, I'm saying we'll give £1,000 worth of... Remember I said we'll do double value, right?
I remember that, yeah.
So, and I'll commit to that no matter what anybody pays. But let's give them £1,000 worth of value for £500 worth of cost if they respond within 7 days.
Okay.
After that 7 days, the game's over. But whatever they pay, whatever level when they choose, then we'll still give that double money back guarantee, Chris. That lasts continually. We just want to make sure that you engage, you spend some money with us. It has to work, which is why we must test the commitment, make sure they sign the declaration, make sure they do a little bit of homework before we invite them in.
Where do I sign? Sounds good. That's an irresistible offer.
Well, I'm trying to make it irresistible because, wealth, wealth can be challenging, and there are lots of, well, look, we're not trying to provide a course with an upsell and if you do this and the price is valued at £5,000, but today's special offer. No. This is as genuine as I can make it. Given that, if I go back, Chris, and those who've listened to my story realize that, I made a commitment to create wealth for myself at age 28. And it took me a lot longer than it should have done because I had to do the DIY method. I really did, not because I was fearful. It's just that there wasn't any path that was already trodden for me. So I had to learn all the lessons. Now all the lessons are learned, Chris. We've boxed them. We've nailed them. We're absolutely certain this works. And I just rather we get an injection of success stories that, in business are quite self-serving too, right? So if we get 100 people who start creating their wealth, they get excited, they start sharing, what's going to happen? More and more people are going to join. And, that's what I really want. I want to see a result for them so they do it faster than I did.
Okay. All right. So if you're listening now and it's within the 7 days, so this is the 1st of May until midnight on the 7th.
Yeah.
And
that'd be the 8th, wouldn't it? Anyway, Wednesday to Wednesday.
Tuesday the 7th. So we'll do to, midnight, 11:59 on the 7th. Okay, just to be clear. So you've got the next 7 days.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to take that wonderful offer there to get the level 2 connection.
You've got all this on a website, right?
Well, the URL to head to is wealthbuilders.co.uk/launch. LAUNCH. And that's where we'll make sure that this is available for the next 7 days.
Yeah, and after that, you put that in the show notes, and
I will indeed.
Make it clear that they're not going to struggle to find their way because we know how time poor people are. So 7 days is plenty of time to have a look. I mean, if they've been listening this far, they must be kind of curious about wealth, and we hope now committed to wealth, and we'll work with them to get to that first wheel turned, that first flow of cash or flow of capital, and to start the serious process of building wealth and hopefully building a relationship that lasts many, many years in the future as they turn more and more wheels and become more sophisticated, more wealthy, more intelligent wealth builders, and willing to not just be helped by us now, but in the future willing to help other people who are on the same journey as them, but they'll be behind them. So we expect our current students to turn into the teachers of the future. And boy, am I looking forward to that.
Me too. So I'm so looking forward to our new Wealth Founders joining the Wealth Builders Foundation program. And it's been really good talking to you again today, Kevin, and going through those 6 modules in the latter half of the program. So that link, once again, wealthbuilders.co.uk/launch. And we'll be back next week with another episode of Wealth Talk, Kevin.
I look forward to that.
And I think we're probably going to start talking about the pillars.
Yeah, I think we should get into the pillars and then start bringing some of our students in with case studies.
Yeah.
So we got examples. So we can start right at the beginning and look at, say, home capacity and bring some real case studies of people who are really bringing in the bacon when it comes to using the capacity within the bricks and mortar that they live in to turn into, real sustainable wealth for the future. And that would be an interesting one to start.
And we have many, many of those stories.
We've got lots of those. Maybe we can, we'll try and capture them to give her some words. And if we don't do that, then let's just get their permission to tell their story at least, because that's going to be enormously valuable. And certainly we can encourage them to post in the Facebook group as well.
I'm looking forward to it. See you next time, Kevin.
See ya.